This is the lecture for week 3 of PAF561. This week's lecture has a strong focus on social media. People have a wide range of opinions when it comes to social media that span from love to hate and indifference to ambivalence. Now, for some, a full day without Facebook is unthinkable, and for others, Twitter, or maybe the tweeter, as this group may refer to it, believe that it is inherently evil. There are any number of reasons for this, and my goal is not to convince you otherwise. Well, mostly. If you choose not to participate in social media on a personal level, I completely understand. I, myself, do not have a Facebook page. However, for the sake of full disclosure, I submit that this week's material is designed to push you toward having a digital presence in your professional life as an emergency manager. If you do not, it's not that you're just not cool or something. You're just missing out on opportunities to solve problems. Now, graduate classes are filled with a very wide range of ages and experiences. In fact, after reading your answers in the introductory discussion board, it's clear that there is a pretty diverse age range in this class. One of the first things that is helpful to determine is whether or not you are what's referred to as a digital immigrant or a digital native. As a general rule, digital immigrants are those that were born before 1980 and have had to learn to use many current technologies later in life. Those born after the 80s have been surrounded by the technology their entire lives and would not have a grasp on what life would be like without them. Now, this could quickly devolve into a generational discussion like boomers versus, Generation Xers versus, the pros and cons of millennials, etc. However, it's not quite that straightforward. Even among those that were born after 1980, there are those that were born after 1993. This group basically did not grow up in a world without smartphones and without Google. The reason I even need a slide about this is not because of the existence of technology. For that matter, technology was basically invented in 1980, at least as it relates to anything electrical. But it's because of your status as either a digital immigrant or a digital native actually affects your worldview. The digital native's view is very decentralized. Because of today's technology, the connectedness that exists between any two people from any two stations or even any geographic locations in life is very real. The ability to share information, photos, videos, experiences in real time across the globe is a serious paradigm shift for digital immigrants, like myself. But used correctly, these tools can be leveraged to organize, to inform, to lead, to learn, even to save lives. So it's not about right and wrong, it's about wisely using the resources available to you. To disregard social media in the contemporary emergency management world, in my opinion, is foolish. It's not a panacea, but it can be an incredibly effective tool in your toolbox. And, by the way, fellow immigrants, it's free. In Chapter 2 of the Haddo and Haddo book, we learn right here these two facts, that 80% of U.S. adults have a mobile connection to the web through a smartphone, and that news can be accessed, generated, influenced, or shared wherever they are and at any time of day. Now, as it relates to traditional media, newspaper employment rates are at an all-time low, and a number of major American cities have no daily newspaper. There have been reductions in editorial and reporting staffs across both newspaper and magazine sectors. In fact, Time magazine is the only weekly magazine left. Conversely, 39% of Americans get their news online. News consumption is up for all ages in this format. 36% of Twitter users follow the news, and the use of news apps continues to increase. Some examples of how social media was used by everyday people during recent crises are listed here. 56% of this demographic listed here got their news of the Boston Marathon bombing from a social networking site. And Boston PD Twitter followers grew from 40,000 to more than 300,000 during that event. And also there were, during Hurricane Sandy, 20 million tweets. So that's 20 million pieces of information that is being shared, many by people right at the scene of the disaster. Now, there is no governmental agency in the world that could amass that much intelligence in such a short span of time. That also means that a lot of information and opinions are being shared across the nation. If you were an emergency manager, wouldn't you want to be a part of that conversation, whether it was to hear what people were saying or to be a contributing voice? Social media is an avenue to provide real-time information both ways. By both ways, I mean from the community to the first responders and to the people from emergency managers. So through the use of social media, emergency managers and other governmental leaders are able to provide situational updates to millions instantaneously. Now that is interoperability. So consider for a second the events of Ferguson, Missouri from 2014. There were over 7.8 million tweets that included the hashtag, or that included hashtag Ferguson. So if I can pull up this website real quick, you'll see this is a time-lapsed heat map of the tweets that took place following the results of the grand jury's decision in the case. So you can see over time here how quickly and how intensely the number of tweets increases. It's a fascinating graphic that shows how an event that takes place in a city that covers only 6 square miles and has a population of 21,000 people generates a conversation among hundreds of thousands, I don't know, maybe even millions of people across the entire country in a very short amount of time. Now, lest I present only one side of the story, it's important to remember that these tools can cut both ways. Just as it is effective in getting quality, real-time information, it can also be the source of real-time, specious misinformation. From an emergency management point of view, we have to be careful how we digest the information that flows in. Consider these two examples. First, there was, again during Ferguson, there were a series of tweets that perpetuated the rumor that officers had stopped and arrested the occupants of a white pickup truck that were just trying to give others rides home. The truth was that of the 12 passengers in this truck, 2 were armed with guns and 1 person in the bed of the truck had a Molotov cocktail. Now, in a second example, there was information that protesters were breaking into a McDonald's to get milk to help with their reaction to the tear gas, so presumably to kind of stay in the fight, so to speak. Now, in reality, it was parents trying to get into the restaurant to protect their children from the tear gas, and it was McDonald's employees that actually gave milk to the people. So it's a bizarre situation that has evolved. In one sense, the massive amounts of unfiltered information makes it a prime source for misinformation. Yet, in another, it provides an opportunity to access information that a news outlet may otherwise have chosen not to publish. In fact, a friend of mine works as a criminal intelligence analyst for the Missouri State Highway Patrol. I was told about some of the things that were happening that did not make the news during the Ferguson event. In one story, a major news organization was on scene when police officers were taking on gunfire. The nationally renowned news organization actually had footage of the incident and in fact even of a police car with freshly made bullet holes that fled the area. The story never even saw the light of day. And when the state police contacted the news organization to ask about the situation and why it wasn't on the news, they simply said, "We didn't think it was newsworthy." So this is exactly why it is important that social media should be used by emergency managers. They can promulgate information without the aid and editing of traditional media sources. As you consider the place of social media in your professional future, recognize that it can be used virtually, pardon the pun, in all 4 phases of emergency management. Becoming familiar with it and learning how to leverage it effectively is an entirely different venture, but acknowledging its place in the contemporary emergency management world is essential. Now, I myself have not mastered it, but if you would like to follow me, here is a shameless plug. On Twitter, I am at GPD Pete Smith. And if you decide to join, I will see you in the Twitter sphere.